all of those things come up, and it's not productive.
Okay, let me put. I have a point I want to bring up with Kaivan, but very briefly, Cenk, deal with that point. Why is Janet Mills too old, but not Bernie Sanders?
No, hold on. Why are we assuming Janet Mills is going to win? The corporate
Can you
Democrat that
answer any of the
Schumer,
questions
hold
you
on, hold on. The corporate Democrat that Schumer picks loses like 98% of the time. They're like the worst candidates. So she's just going to go out there and be like, oh, I love corporate donors. That's not going to beat Susan Collins. We've already tried that 100 times. So to me, Mills is a guaranteed loss. That's not a gamble. You're almost definitely going to lose. So why would I go in that direction? That makes no sense at all. And is there a difference between Mills, who's 77, and it keeps getting backed like almost all the corporate Democrats because she delivers for the people who wanted a return on investment, the donor class, the corporate class? Well, that's different than Bernie Sanders, who's still in there because he's backed by the American people and grassroots fundraising and seems alert.
Do you know a lot about Janet Mills' record in Maine, Cenk?
No, I don't.
So then what are you like? So I mean,
no, I know all the corporate Democrats. I know they're all losers.
But like this
they
is
all
why
never
I think
do
the
anything.
conversation devolves.
I guarantee you, if she goes in the Senate, she does
it's
nothing.
like you don't agree with me. You're a corporate neo-lib shit.
Go ahead.
Guys,
give me a brilliant record in Maine. Go ahead.
Kaivan, you can tell us about Janet Mills' record in just a moment. Before I do that, just to check, we seem to be arguing on two different points here. One is it a liability for Plattner to be the candidate or Mills to be the candidate? That's one issue. There's a separate issue, which is who's a better candidate, right? Which Cenk is making a very strong case, which I sympathize with, that Plattner's record, the policy platform, is a very good policy platform that people want. Clearly, it's energized people, Kaivan. Do you recognize the distinction between those two different points?
Well, I think in the first case, who's a better candidate is hard to answer because we don't know anything about Graham Plattner, and who has the better policies and who's more exciting. We also don't really know because we don't know details of Plattner's policies. He's really just inherited the Leaders We Deserve hype, the Bernie Sanders hype, the Pod Save America Bros hype. And that's what I'm saying, is that to do this national media tour that we've seen, by the way, again and again and again, he's
come out against genocide, Kaivan, which is a pretty big issue for the Democratic base. I don't know if Janet Mills has.
Sure. I just think every issue, right, is being nationalized, whereas you're saying this is some like DC hack job. His very hyper-local Maine operative political director is one of the people that has a main problem with this and says he's unelectable. They say there's more Oppo research. He said all sorts of things offending local communities in Maine, and we should be able to talk about that in a normal way. By the way, if you want to have him stay in, what I'm saying is stay in, debate the policies, don't do the conspiracy theory delusional smear of this is all, being puppeteered by Hillary Clinton in her basement in Chappaqua. That's not happening.
No, that's absurd. You're saying that Chuck Schumer has nothing to do with this?
No,
that his handpicked candidate enters the race, and all of a sudden a giant dump of Oppo research? Are you really saying Chuck Schumer has nothing to do with it?
By the way, even Hassan Piker, organizer memes, lots of people on the farther left of the spectrum are coming out and saying this makes no sense.
I don't even know what that means. First of all, why do I care what Hassan Piker has to say?
Because I'm just saying that of all the people
I think he's citing Hassan as a leftist, not as your nephew, Cenk, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think he's making the point that
leftists... So what? Sure. There's a lot of people out to my left that I don't agree with.
But I'm just saying, who's this for then?
Hold on, Cenk, let me jump in and say I've struggled with this, which is why I wanted to moderate this debate, because I've liked Plattner up until now. I've been that very clear that I've liked Plattner up until now. I like his policy platform. I like the idea that he's populist and he's anti-establishment. But for me, I spend much of my time calling out Republicans for being in Nazi group chats and doing dumb shit and pretending like J.D. Vance coming out and saying, well, it doesn't matter. It's all just edgy humor. And I just think it undermines, no one's saying he's a Nazi, but doesn't it slightly undermine the progressive argument if you're putting up for candidate guy, you're like, well, I'm fine with his Nazi tattoo.
Yeah, it doesn't undermine my argument.
Can I just say one thing about that tattoo, though?
Hold on. Let Cenk finish and then Kaivan, you come back in.
All right, so two things there, Mehdi. So first of all, I don't believe in cancel culture. So I've never canceled anybody for stuff like that. So I stay true to my principles.
You said at the start of this interview you would have canceled him if it was a swastika.
Yeah, okay. So you're right. There is a line at some point. Fair enough. Okay, yeah. But and I'm sure that you could find one or two times in public figures where I said, yeah, that's way too far, right? But overall, I don't believe in cancel culture, and you know that. I have an enormous track record of hating cancel culture. Second of all, guys, the context matters so much, because if I thought he was a secret Nazi, would I support him? Absolutely not. Not even close. If I thought for sure that he actually meant to get that Nazi tattoo and liked that it was on his body for all that time, I would be against him. But the context clues suggests otherwise. He's never written anything else like that. He's never showed any anti-Semitic trait.
But it's not, I
anything.
think
Go on.
the difference
Okay,
is
Kaivan.
you're focused on what you think. And I think other people want to talk about what the voters in Maine are going to think and what's possible here. So that is a distinction. And I will say with the tattoo, what we have from present day judgment, I mean, I just think this is a crazy fact pattern. You suddenly learn you're running for Senate with no experience. You haven't been vetted. You learn you have a Nazi tattoo on you that you've had for 20 years. And your solution is to immediately, within 24 hours, get some hideous animal tattooed over it and go on this victim tour. It's very strange behavior to me. It doesn't show somebody with the thoughtfulness, the judgment, the restraint to belong in the Senate. I'm not saying he can't prove those skills, but he has no established record where he's demonstrated. And all we know about him now are pretty negative things and a bunch of viral one-liners that, frankly, a lot of progressives have been saying in the last 5 years, which, by the way, he voted for Susan Collins in Maine until 2020. So he may not be one of those people. Worst case, he's kind of a grifter guy who sees his moment and is saying all the right things. And I'm not saying that. We don't know enough.
Well, a lot of people in the chat are worried about the Fetterman issue, Cenk, that you kind of went over. One person in the chat says, look at the UNH poll, the poll that shows him 30 points clear. It said very clearly that even the people who love Janet Mills and think she was a great governor will back Plattner. If Mills is a candidate, a sizable number of Maine Dems will vote for Susan Collins simply on the seniority calculus and tell you they love Mills. She did a great job. I mean, the Mills, we don't know enough about Mills. I'm not a Maine expert. I think Cenk's agreed. But she did win, Cenk. She won the gubernatorial election in 2022, I think, by 12 points. So she's clearly popular in Maine.
Yeah, look, fair enough that I don't know nearly enough about Maine politics, and I don't know that we all are supposed to study Maine politics.
No, but it's
No,
about
but I
whether
think-
it's about whether.
Okay,
it's
hold
about-
on,
You
hold
even
on,
know that she's
hold
not more
on, hold on.
progressive?
Let me finish. Right, but I do know national politics, and I do know not every time. Sometimes he gets it wrong, but Chuck Schumer almost always picks the worst candidate, and they are picked based on the fact of will they bow their heads to donor class. And so that's the number one trait that Chuck Schumer looks for. His candidates are not universally, 98% of the time, awful. So she is very likely to be awful,
We're just making
plain,
things up.
vanilla, etc.
No.
So, okay, so listen, guys, the constant assumption is if you pick a boring, safe, corporate Democrat, they're going to win. That assumption is totally, utterly wrong. And on the Fetterman point, Mehdi, this is really important. Guys, I get it. Fetterman is so toxic that he's unfortunately now getting us to not support other candidates because we're worried they'll turn into Fetterman.
That's true.
But don't let him do double the damage.
By the way, I should point out, someone in
for no reason because of Fetterman, that makes no sense.
Someone pointed out in the chat, Jerry Calderola, that Fetterman had a stroke that debilitated him imperably. I do find it amusing that once
he got brain damage and became a Republican.
I do find it amusing that he got brain damage and became a Republican. Kaivan, let me ask you this. Patrick Loftus in the chat says, I'm a Maine voter. Thank you, Patrick. People here trust Graham. He just had a 500-person town hall last night after Tattoogate. He's clearly the better candidate. What do you say to Patrick?
Based on that people showed up for him now when we're not even close to June, which is the primary, and then not even close to November, 0 ads have been run at all. And I think the key here is about how electoral politics work, which is that against the Democratic primary candidates, he may be doing well. By the way, those polls that we're talking about, polls moved from likely Republican to toss up when Mills entered the race against Collins. And so we can all talk about polls and data, and these polls don't reflect the most recent scandals. But that said,
Wait a minute.
He showed up, he's getting an audience. And I'm not there to deny that he has energy and momentum and some communication skills that are resonating with people. But what I'm saying is he's a very risky candidate who hasn't been vetted, who hasn't taken accountability.
Hold on, Kevin. Take Cenk's specific point that he's made multiple points now, which is there's an assumption that if you put Plattner out of the way, you have a better chance. And Cenk's point is these corporate-backed, centrist, whatever you want to call them, mainstream establishment, use your term or pejorative.
But it's not true. Okay, yeah, so first I want to argue with his data.
They're not guaranteed a victory. We saw what happened with Andrew Cuomo in New York. We're seeing Mamdani's energy. Horrible candidate, agreed.
I respect you. I respect you a lot,
Hillary
but
Clinton.
I think it's tough to compare Janet Mills to Andrew Cuomo.
Agreed. But could you compare Mamdani's energy and momentum to Graham Plattner?